All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about just a very simple idea, and it's just are you being a host or a hostage? And that is really this is going to be the whole premise of the show today. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, the founder of Restored Minds. And if you benefit from this show, please help us out by liking, subscribing, and leaving a nice review on iTunes and Spotify. So, with that said, let's jump into the show. So, today, I was out for a walk this morning and I was listening to the book The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And in it, there was a section of the book, and he said the following quote, and I quote, it's you can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. Now, I just thought this was just such a profound idea, so simple, and I felt it warranted me to make an episode about just this one quote because I just when you sit and think about that, it's ultimately that one quote could ultimately determine the quality of your life. You know, if you really thought about that. And so let's talk about what they both mean, and then we'll put forth the question at the end again. So when we're talking about, let's talk about being a hostage to your ego first. So your ego is this self concept in the mind, and it's constantly again judging, talking, running, based off your lower emotions. Right? It views the world in a sense of separation, of scarcity, lack, limitation. And so you're constantly, again, judging, analyzing, competing with others, holding grudges, living in fear, anger, shame, guilt, desire, right? These lower energies tend to encompass this experience. And when the ego's running, and like we know with OCD and anxiety specifically, it's when the ego's running, it's just saying things and you're just listening and then following suit of whatever it says. You're a hostage to it. You're not in control of your life. The reason that my program is called Taking Back Control, it's not because you literally control your mind. It's that when you're lost in the ego, you're not dictating anything. You're just merely following whatever emotion surfaces and whatever thought happens, and you really are just a hostage to that. And the converse way to live, or the opposite of that, would be to be present, to be in a higher energy state, to be in the energies of, again, courage, willingness, acceptance, joy, peace, love, and and in those states, interestingly enough, I mean, Dr. Hawkins talks about in his books, or Dr. David Hawkins talks about, the idea that your brain literally functions differently in the higher states of energy versus the lower states. And so you really do have a completely different perception of life. And in those states, you feel safe enough to be present, to actually allow yourself to be a channel for the divine. And, so when he talks about being a host to God, I mean, ultimately that is what you really are when you remove the ego, right? So in the book, The Power of Intention, Dr. Dyer talks about the whole idea of the word ego is edging God out, right? Meaning you understand yourself as this separateness and this individual, and therefore you need to protect, and everything's scarce and you compete. And that's where this whole concept, right, when you see yourself as separate, you become hostage to it. And really the idea of the sense of self, the true self, the higher self, is this conscious being that's here ultimately to be able to be used in the present moment for good, as a host, if you will. And that idea is just so powerful because it really is like when you are lost in the ego, you block yourself off from being a host to for the divine in the present moment, which is really the only place God can exist, is the present moment. Because that's the only place and time, quote unquote time, in which he operates. And I say he is it's not, I don't even think he is a correct pronoun there, but the divine operates in the now. And the mind, the ego, only operates in the future and past. That's the only place it can exist. And when you're a hostage to the ego, you're constantly, again, holding grudges, worrying, being guilty about the past, or again, fearful or anticipating the future. That's where you become a hostage. It's where your consciousness becomes a hostage, because that's where you're falsely identified and then you're focused on that. And so to be a host on the other side means you feel safe enough and you're present enough to really be aware to be able to be used right now in some kind of positive force or positive way. Whether that is just simply connecting to someone presently. And when you're present in a connection with somebody, talking to them, let's say having coffee or sitting with a meal with them, or even with your children, just being present, not being on your phone, not drowning in emails that are, nonsense. When you're really present, let's say with your child or spouse or just someone in your family, or, even a complete stranger, you provide them the opportunity to not feel alone, to know that they're not alone. The only way that happens, though, is if you're actually present. I'm not talking about physically being there. I'm talking about being consciously present. That's a great example of simply being a host, right? Of allowing that divine connection to flow through you to that person presently. And the only way that you're able to do that, again, is you're not hostage to ego. A very, very simple way. I mean, but there's a multitude of ways that this plays out through the day. Right? When you're present, you're able to see the door that needs to be held, the person that needs a hand carrying something. You're able to be attuned even to internal divine nudges you get that tell you, hey, it's like, maybe you should give this person a call, right? You don't know why, but then you do it, and all of a sudden it's the exact thing they needed that day. This idea is really at the very pinnacle of what Restored Minds is about. And when I first created it, is because it's so much more than just, oh, hey, you don't feel anxiety anymore. Don't get me wrong, that's great if you're putting the tools into practice and you notice a significant transformation in your life where you were crippled by anxiety and you've worked through the releasing of that to where now you live in a more peaceful state. That's great. But the reason that we do that is to be instruments, conductors, if you will, of positive to the world. And that doesn't need to be this profound thing all the time, right? It doesn't matter, how many people listen to this episode, right? If 3 people listen to it, it's okay. Maybe those 3 people are the ones that are going to connect with it. It's not about this doesn't need to be heard by 7 million people, right? But even then, when I was listening to the walk, I just knew this is something I was supposed to create today. And I don't know who's going to hear it, that then receives it, then has some kind of positive trickle into their life that then carries on. It doesn't matter, right? And it's not like this is not coming from me. I mean, this is something that I read from someone else, and then I'm just passing it forward. I'm conducting it on. And the only way that I can do that is if I'm present enough to be able to listen, to receive, to hear, to do this, and not be in my mind again analyzing, oh my gosh, like what if people think this sounds dumb, oh my gosh, like what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this. If you go into that and you falsely identify with that, you block yourself off from these opportunities of being a host. That's why it really is, when he says it's your call, it's a decision. It's a decisive act you get to take moment by moment. Am I lost in my mind thinking about this, that, and the other, analyzing my quote unquote problems, completely self-focused, lower self-focused of this is everything that I need to happen this way, harboring grudges against people in the past, fearing something that could happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 2 hours. It doesn't matter. It's like, to even just be aware of whether you're a hostage or a host allows you the opportunity to begin to choose. It doesn't matter if you've been a hostage all day. If you can break out of that for 5 minutes, maybe you become a host at just the right time to do something, do something positive for someone else that day. Once you understand it's your choice, though, it really is your choice, that's when you start to take the ownership and realize, hey, where am I directing my energy, my consciousness, deciding not to get involved in the mind, and learning to really move into these higher states of energy where you really can be a host for good. So, and because again, I really believe that it's not Matt, quote unquote, doing something good, or or John or Jane or whoever. It's the power flowing through. You are conducting, that good through, and that's why you don't take ownership over it from an ego perspective. You just understand that I'm just that host, right? And that's a true connection to that divine. So I know it's a bit of a different episode, but I just felt so compelled to speak on it today, to pass this forward today, because if you get it, it's like you see that living in fear, in OCD, in anxiety, in or even things like guilt and shame and anger and all that other stuff, it really does block you, and it really is a choice. Because if you understand that, you get to choose not to do that. You actually have that choice and power to make that decision. So with that, hope this was helpful. Hope it connects to someone, and I hope it serves you well. And with that, I will see you on the next episode as we continue on. And I wish you a great day and a great week. Talk soon. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.